I'm so happy to see Hypixel Duels is finally going to get updated, but something important needs to be addressed. As many of you may know, the Hypixel KB is very sporadic, and because of this, the combos tend to look very extraordinary, thus making every combo feel unique and special. And Hypixel hasn't changed their knockback for years, right? Well, they haven't. At least not intentionally. This video is going to be addressing the issue as it only affects Hypixel Duels and not other game modes. The golden age will be referred to as Hypixel when it had their old knockback versus now. Around 2019 to 2022, Hypixel Duels averaged around 3,000 to 5,000 players, with UHC Duels having a standalone upwards to 1,000 players queuing the game mode. As of right now, it stands barely above 50. With the entirety of Duels scraping 800 players on a good day. It's no question that Duels isn't as popular as it once was, but why is that? And how is this related to the knockback? Well, the golden age of Duels, combos were something unique and special to Hypixel. Some of the best build UHC players of all time originated from Hypixel. Some names include Muffin Axe, Swigod, Bloge, Derek LA, all of which are players that demonstrated their skills on the old knockback, which is very responsive and fluid. Nowadays, compared to the newer knockback, players such as myself, Aiden Airplane, Jose, and Badline Chi struggle to replicate similar results. Although you may argue that we aren't as good as the old gen players, all of the players I've mentioned just now beats the older players. The thing is, your montage is a highlight of your best clips. And if your best clips as the standalone best of UHC Duels right now can only consist of 4 or 5 hits, something isn't making sense. Either Aiden Airplane, the current best, is a complete fraud, or the knockback is preventing the player to combo. Now, you might be wondering what is the difference between old and new knockback? Well, in the newer knockback, we can find ourselves rodding the player plenty and still not be able to get a combo when the opponent is not rodding at all. A brief understanding quickly of how rods work for those who don't know. A rod is meant to decrease your player's momentum, so if your player's maximum momentum is 5 and the rods only tax 3 momentum bar, then you'll have 2 momentum bar remaining, thus making the player stunted. When 2 consecutive rods land on a player, the rods will first stunt the player's momentum from 5 to 2 and then to -1, making the player take knockback. That's why the first rod always slows down the player and the second rod makes them take knockback. Now that you have a brief understanding of how rods work, let's go back to the main topic at hand. If the player landing the rods is struggling to start the combo, this will be an issue on the rod's knockback, as the rod should properly stunt the player's momentum, thus decreasing their reach. The way Minecraft works is that the player moving faster is granted the first hit. That's why players with speed 2 will always get the first hit and have an easier time retaining the combo than the one without speed. With that said, however, if the player who is rodding the player without the rod gets the combo but struggles to hold it, this is an issue with the player's knockback as the server side's input is either too high or too low, making the opponent take too little or too much knockback. Observing from the footage of ICKY'S 2021 knockback test, we observed that the knockback is balanced. Every individual rod stunts the player and doesn't push them away too much. If the rods push the player back too much, then both players will never be able to intersect as the knockback prevents melee combat from the game. The reason knockback is balanced is so that both players are able to go in whilst rodding, and if you hit the rod and mess up the spacing prior to the combo, it'll be the player's fault, thus making the skill ceiling relatively high whilst protecting the core mechanics of the game. If you were to look at a server like My Man Club, however, their knockback is too much. Because of this, the winner of the fight is decided not by whose spacing is better relative to the rods, but whoever lands the most rod or the last rod is the winner. Going back, you can see that each hit provided by the jump combo launches the player enough so that when you make a full jump sprint, you have to land in between from too little and too far, making it a skill to be able to perform said jump combos. As if you continue to hold W after the jump, you will be hit by the player, and not holding W enough will cause them to fly away. This is what makes the old knockback so fun, the sporadicness and its fluidity. Now, look at the newer knockback, we see both pillars of what makes a good knockback are disrupted. The rods aren't dealing enough knockback for the player to get comboed, and the knockback itself lacks horizontal input, making it so that the player getting and holding the combo can retain it. And that is why the Hypixel knockback needs to be changed. In the description, I have linked ICKY'S forum thread that talks about everything I've spoken in this video. Be sure to upvote it as it will get the admin's attention. More people need to start talking about it. Share it with your friends. Remember, Bed Wars will be coming to Duels, and it'll be in your best interest to make sure the knockback is fun and enjoyable. This has been StrafeDS. Thank you for watching.